Okay, Jacob Rees Mogg.
Chairman, and good morning, Minister. Thank you for coming in, your comprehensive answers. The Federation of Small Businesses is very concerned that small businesses haven't been paying proper attention to your notices, saying that 86% haven't done anything. Though as 87% of our economy is not trading with the EU, it seems that 1% of businesses probably done something they didn't need to do. Of course, leading on from that, and on the no-deal preparation notices, do you think it's an opportunity to remove burdens on business rather than uprate them to the level of those we have when we deal with countries outside the European Union? Thinking particularly of the export regulations, where the government's no-deal notice requires businesses to comply in the way that they now have to if trading with, for example, the United States. Wouldn't it be simpler actually to deregulate and put businesses dealing with the United States from UK government purposes on the same basis as those exporting to the European Union?
I understand the point you're making, but the policy decision was made to go down this particular route, and that's what we've done.
But doesn't that make no-deal preparations worse? Because instead of saying we will have a level playing field that is easier for everybody, it says actually we're going to put burdens on those who export to the European Union that are completely unnecessary.
I'd suggest the opposite. I'd say it probably makes it slightly easier because then you know that any country that needs to, any business that needs to export can use that partnership pack and go through the website and find the details that it needs to, what it needs to do to get its customs number, its IORI number, and an export. So.
But why is the British government asking for these things? I can understand why the country to which you export requires them. But the British government only really wants it for bureaucratic purposes, for statistical purposes. It's not any help to business. It's just a burden.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I'm afraid I'm not a Bayes minister, so I do not know what that department might do with this fantastically important information. So I can't answer. I do know, though, that we wanted to ensure that there was blanket coverage for businesses that wanted to export to the European Union and indeed beyond. And so the route we've gone down is as I've described.
So are the notices owned by you or by the departments whose area it is?
The technical notices.
Technical notices.
Each department is responsible for its own technical notice, policy, publicity, and other things. Yeah.
And is the area of responsibility for export form filling with the Department for International Trade or with Bayes?
I believe they're with Bayes.
Bayes. Okay, so it's Bayes who actually, not known to be the most enthusiastic ministry for Brexit, is making the bureaucratic burden higher rather than lower. And that's a policy decision.
I would, having not filled in the form, I don't know if it's a heavier bureaucratic burden, but the responsibility is the responsible department.
Thank you very much. That was all I wanted to ask you.
Thank you. Jeremy Lefroy.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, Minister. Could I ask what the government's policy is in the event of leaving without a deal on imposing tariffs on European Union goods into the United Kingdom?
You could. It's a matter of it's under discussion at the highest level of government at this point in time.
So we don't know.
It's not been formalised, and it will be announced very, very shortly.
And do we know? Presumably, we know that the European Union's policy would be to impose tariffs on UK goods entering the European Union.
Absolutely.
So at this moment, it would be possible that we would be not charging tariffs, importing, and yet our exporters would be facing tariffs. So a kind of dissonance between the two.
I honestly couldn't comment on that because I do not. So I don't want to set any.
In the event that the United Kingdom decided not to impose tariffs on goods coming in from the European Union, what would your assessment be of how we would then have to treat goods coming in from the rest of the world in regard of tariffs under most favoured nation rules.
Yeah. Forgive me, because I don't want to prevaricate, but this is policy that's wholly owned by the Department for International Trade, alongside its partners in the Foreign Office and ultimately the Prime Minister, and is at a stage where it's being in the finalisation of development. And I'm not privy to that information.
But you are the Minister responsible for preparations in case we leave without a deal.
I am the Minister with responsibility for
So,
preparation.
with all due respect, and I have a great deal of respect, I don't think that's good enough. That you are not in that position 2.5 months before the relevant date to be able to advise the committee on that.
I mean, there are obviously a whole host of elements at play here. I can tell you that the system we would need to run to collect and impose tariffs is ready to go with it. It would need to be, all the different tariffs would need to be entered into it for it to work. So the process that is required behind the scenes for it all to function properly is all set up, but the policy is in its final stage of development now.